Masech the Beyed of Chav Beis with Aleph, the last of the short and the narrow lines. Ameimar Shori leMikchal Eino Minochri b'Shabbato. Ameimar allowed a person to have a nochri, a goy, paint his eye with some medicine, put medicine into his eye on Shabbos. The sugya before we said that one, if it's a konas nefashis, most definitely one is allowed to do it himself. He could even be over a malacha mamish. If it's not a konas nefashis, then what's about if you're asking a goy if one is allowed to do it? So now we're saying a new halacha, it's a new din now. That actually, even if it's not sakonis nefashis, but it's just a choyle, a person who's sick, is a choyle, she'ein boi sakona, which he has. This is the matziv of Ameimar. It was telling a person, a choyle she'ein boi sakona. What melachis is allowed to be done to a choyle she'ein boi sakona? A very important sugya. Halacha l'maisa today also. Actually, it's a big heter. Many times people don't realize. Look at Shulchan Aruch. A few times mentioned. I'll tell you Shulchan Aruch. Any cotton that needs something is classified as a choyle she'ein boi sakona. So if one's looking for a heter, of course a rav, you have to ask a rav for a heter. But the heter bringing food, they ask a Shabbos to shul, and the reinish shul Shabbos, they forgot the bach of the food. You had ketanim that need to have food, and if not, they would not have the food. You have to ask a rav. I'm saying, but that is also a smach to be able to be say you're allowed to do a malacha, whatever you're allowed to do by a choyle she'ein boi sakona. If the cotton needs it, allowed to cook. A guy is allowed to cook for a cotton that doesn't have not if you die for sure. That's mamash konas even for God. You could cook. You give out, you're tzedich for him. Okay, that's a maimer amuzger that you should know that that's a halacha. But now we're going to even Shabbos, But that's a cotton she'ein boi sakona. So every cotton who's tzedich, he needs something that's called chayil. Here, maimer paskin that an Eid that was a choyle she'ein boi sakona, but he had a choyle from his eyes. It wasn't sakona. A goy is allowed to put in his eyes medicine. Medicine is the clouds of shavus. Because we'll see soon. It can be if it's even Shabbos. You could do it yourself. Why tell a goy?
He couldn't do it himself.
No, he's saying.
Okay.
No, the kiddush.
How do you paint your own
Okay. Fine. I think we'll let's do the Rashi and Gemara. We'll see. But from the Mashmos, it's quite clear that the dafki you have to ask a milanoch, you have to ask a goy to do it. And even the goy, you look at I'm not going to go to the Peratim Shulchan Aruch. It's a whole halacha. Could the goy do for you a malacha gemura, or could a goy do for you only a shvus, depending on the matzah? And look at the Shin Chav Ches. You have all these scenarios when you could tell the goy to do a malacha gemura, the raisa, when you could tell the goy to do it shvus, when you yourself could do it b'shinui. But that's all in Shin Chav Ches. But now we're speaking about this is the shadish of it. This is going to be mamish shadish, the source of a lot of things. It's in Shin Chav Ches. So
we had before.
Yeah.
Is it so-called nafashos? There's no shy.
No shy.
But we talked about putting the kachol in the eye, and then the question was why not? And we said that it was at the end of the illness.
Right.
What's the difference between there and here? We're talking there about putting kachol in the eye, and then you had to go to the end of the illness, and now we're talking about putting kachol in the eye.
Yeah.
Am
So Asur was for the Yid to do it for himself. So we said before, when it's the beginning of the illness, you're allowed to do it yourself. The end of the illness, which is choyle she'ein boi sakona, Asur, we pass me for Asur. Now, this case of Asur, what's about telling a guy to do it?
Okay, so this is either the beginning or the this at any point
the beginning you can do it yourself. Beginning if it's mamish, we said Gemara Pesachim says we had it last time. A choyle in the eye is indication to the heart, and therefore it's also very crucial. And therefore, if it's mamish a real choyle of the eye, from your eye, you have to go and do it yourself a malach the raisa. But it's the end of the choyle. Before we said asur, but now we're saying to a goy you could tell a goy to do it. So it's choyle she'ein boi sakona. It's not the beginning of the choyle of the ayin. It's the end. And then here's going to be the din that he holds, or Ameimer holds. You're allowed to ask a goy, a mil nochri. Again, he's not crushing for you and samamonim to make the medicine. That's another shaila. Could you tell a goy to do a malacha gemura? Here he's doing a shvus. Taking medicine or is a shvus. A shvus, you might go ahead and grind and do teichin. Right? That's a shvus. Our case is telling a goy to do a shvus for you on Shabbos if you're choyle she'ein boi sakona. A Meimer allowed it.
This is Shabbos again?
Shabbos, look, a Meimer, let's say, Shari, he allowed Lamikhal Eina Minochri, he allowed someone that a goy should paint his eye, Bishabato on Shabbos. Ikadam is something even more, not just he gave a hero to someone else, for himself. A Meimer Gufei, Meimer himself was sick, he had something in his eye, Shein Beisakona, and he also himself, Kochal Eina Minochri Bishabato. He received this paint from the goy on Shabbos itself. Either way, I mean, the same thing. He wouldn't pass it for other thing he wouldn't do for himself. You're allowed to tell a goy to do for you a shavus on Shabbos if you're choyle shein b'sakon. Amalei Rav Ashi, yeah. Amalei Rav Ashi la meimar. Rav Ashi tells meimar, my daitoch. What do you think? The Amar Ule Bereid Rabbi Loi, you're passing your din based on these two statements we're going to have now. It's basically paraphrasing the same halacha. You're passing based on what Ule said, the son of Beloy said, called all the needs of a chayla, oisin al yidei nachri b'Shabbos. That's one din that is allowed to be done through a nachri and Shabbos. So you went there and passing that you could do it through a nachri. Another din, same idea. Vam Rab Hamnuna also called davar she'ein boi sakona. Any matziv you don't have sakona. You could do it. So based on these two memories from Amiroim, you went there and paskin that you allowed the goy to do a malacha for Yid. In our case, it's actually a shvus. You allowed a goy to do a shvus for you on Yom Tov, right? That's fine. Up until now, it's fine. There's no problem. He's backing him up. Up until now, he's giving it out. You're doing good. But now comes the shaila. The shaila was, you were doing something. The shas, the person was putting you this medicine in your eye. You were Messiah. And now we're going to have a small sugi of Messiah. You helped him. Assisted him. And is siyua allowed or not allowed? Now we're going to go back to it. That's no problem that you told the guy to do malacha for you if you were speaking about a choyle, right? Or something that has no sakana, you could do it. The only shaila is, Hani Mili, when is the guy allowed to do it for you? When you're not helping him, you're assisting him. Avulmar, the master, the Ameimar, I just saw when you were doing it, you were assisting the guy. How were you assisting him? Mar Kamsaya Bahadei. You helped him out. The Omitz, you closed, Upasach, and you opened. You were opening and closing your eyes while the medicine was being applied to your eye. And that class is classified as Siyua. So if you had somehow left your eyes open, right? And let him just open it and close it by himself when he needs it, that I would have no problem with, says Rabashi. But maybe you were assisting, and now siyua as a whole new sugya. That's a problem.
But the Ikad Omri says that he did it. He could have done it himself. So if that's the case, he could have done it himself. So what? No.
Ikadam doesn't mean he did it. The guy did it to him. The guy did it to him. Not he did it himself. Ikadam says he took it. The guy. One was he gave a hero to someone else. You see.
What's the economy there?
It's very different. It's a very small difference. One is push the story. What happened? Did he give a hero to another yid to allow a guy to do it to your eye, or it actually happened to himself? It's just two gifts of how it took place.
But it's not given permission.
Yeah, permission. Or he did, but then not.
So
it was a story of what happened. Not that he did it himself.
Okay.
Yeah. So the shaila is he's Messiah. That's what he asked Ameimar. Rabashi asked Ameimar this. A Messiah, is a very big problem. You shouldn't pass a cup of wine to a Nazir, right? You're helping him out even, and that's not even siyua. Mamish here, your mamish assisting him itself. You have a Gemara Makis about shaving one's payas. That if makif and nikif, the makif is over the lav and chayiv malkis, if he's the one shaving off the person's payas with a sad, with a razor. And the person himself depends. If the nikof, the one who's being shaved, if he's helping out a little bit, either moving his payas or moving his head, so he's assisting in the makif, he's also getting malkis. No? So because he's a messiah. You have other cases of a person's messiah. No, but in the case of the Nazir, you're not going to get anything. The case of normally, if in the Iver, we say we shouldn't help you doing Aveda, that there you're not mamish taking part in the Aveda. If you're not Chayiv Malchus, you can't get Chayiv Malchus giving Nazir wine. He'll Chayiv Malchus himself, but not you. You just hand him the wine. But here we're speaking about a case of Nikif and Makim, and also Malach and Yom Tif, L'choira, your mamish taking part in it, and so a Messiah should be a problem. We'll see itself. That's itself as a discussion.
Okay.
But that's a shaila. So
the guy could have done it himself.
yeah,
But a Neymar is helping.
yeah. Indeed, if the guy could have never done it himself, and a Meiman needed to help, it's for sure a problem.
Yeah.
Because, like we say, it comes to Malacha Shabbos, when two people do a Malacha, they carry a big beam that they can't carry each one separately. Each one is chayiv deiraisa, because you need each Malacha. But if I could carry the beam myself, and you're weak and you can't carry it yourself, the beam, but I could, and you help me out to tag along, you're not chayiv, I'll be chayiv. But the Rabbanon, you shouldn't do it. But you should still do it with the Rabbanon. So indeed, Obina Geya, he didn't need Amema to open and close his eyes. The guy could have, opened. Nevertheless, he's telling him that Messiah, if indeed you needed Rav Amema's participation, if not, it cannot be done, then Mamish has a part of the Malacha, right? But if he didn't, he's a Messiah. And even there, Rav Ashi Taina is that it's a problem. Messiah is a problem. Yeah, that's the Shailatim. He tells him, Omalei, Ike Rab Zvid, the Koi Kavaseich. Actually, Rab Zvid asked me the same question. You're not the first one of Ashi that asked me this question. Rab Zvid, Koi Kavaseich. He's like you, he asked me the same question. But I gave him an answer also. What was my answer? And I gave him an answer. What was the answer? I'm arguing with you in Din. Messiah, that's the Din. Messiah ein boy mamash. Messiah means nothing. That means there's no mamash in it. And therefore, there's no Isur. We just mentioned before the Makiv and the Nikif, Gemara Makis, all of the Shurdim discussed this. Here we paskin that Misayaya ein boy mamosh. In Gemara Makis we paskin Misayaya yesh boy mamosh, in the sense of the halacha is the Nikov who helped out, even though the one giving the haircut could have cut his payas off without him moving around. But he moved around, he is getting malchus. L'chayr it's a stira. The Rambam Paskin's also here like this and there like that. So l'chayr it's a stira, and they give answers. Yeah.
I don't know. The Bible will tell you, please stay still.
So sometimes, yeah.
So you're Messiah whether you stand still or whether you move around.
Maybe if you're ruining it, it's not so bad. You're ruining the haircut if you move around. And they're speaking of a case that he needed the help. Yep. It says he handed him his fist. Here, somebody helped him. Yeah, it could be. It's designed. In cases where you're actually ruining it, but even though you're moving around, what that should make, because they have to classify it as they're the sugis lav shein b'maisa. Gemara Makis the sugi is lav shein b'maisa ein loikin olav. If you don't get malchus, lav has a maisa. Kashi is received with the nikov. The nikov gets malchus. Gemara answers the nikov had a shtikul maisa. He was also involved in moving it, so that's why he had a maisa also. Anyway, so the Rishonim asked right away aside the question. Here it says ein boy mamosh Messiah. That's a din in Hilchos Shabbos. And by Nikov, we see that he gets malchus. There's a few answers I saw. One basic answer is, like we said, the Maisa with over there, Bemis min hadin, like I just mentioned now. I think the Edie said, look into min hadin, the Nikov also is also usher. The lashon of the pasuk is lo yisakifu. It's clear that both should not do it. Side the one should not. That's Isur is there. The only shaila was about yesh b'maiser or not. So the only shaila was l'chayre, he is also to have a barber cut your face off is also in any case. The only shaila was why should he get malchus? Malchus, he didn't have meiser. The one who's cutting the hair, okay, he's doing both. He's also to do it. He's doing meiser. So for that little issue, we say moving your head already constitutes meiser. That's one of the answers given to the shaila. But upon him, there in Malchus, it's a different reason why there we say the Nikif does get Malchus. But here we have the end of the Maisa and a Machlekes, and I don't hold with this. Doctor. Let's see Rashi. Is it Rashi here? I think there's a Rashi. Yeah, Omitz. You see Rashi, Omitz u Pasach. Omitz u Pasach. Omitz is a Pasach, we know means open. Omitz is a new word. And that word, Rashi touches the word Pasach, yeah? Whenever there's a word that apparently the Ben Chamesh Yisrael Gemara, this 15-year-old person should be learning Gemara. It's a word he doesn't really, not familiar with. The Rashi will teach it for him. So Amitzu Pasach says Rashi Soiger uPeseyach. He closes and opens Irisei Einav, his eyelids. Lahachnis hakchel, to allow the koil to come in the medicine. Next Rashi, he answers Iker Abzvid Shahoya Mak Shalika Moisech. Abzid also asked me the same question. I'm a Messiah by opening and closing my eyes. V'shanile, and I gave him this answer, as we say, next Rashi, Misayeya ein boy mamish. Misayeya doesn't mean anything. It has no substance to it. Mi she'eina oisem malacha mamish. A person who's not doing the malacha mamish. Ella only rather Misayeya me'at. He's only helping a little bit with someone else. And now it gives an example I mentioned to you before from Masechta Shabbos. Ki hai. Look, first like this one, like a Meimar who's merely helping a little bit. Ubelavhu, without a Meimar's opening and closing his eyes. Nevertheless, without him, misavda, it will be done. The malacha, the guy could perfectly do it without his help. Ein boy mamash, doesn't have any mamash to it. Like we see, Masechta Shabbos. Like we see Masechta Shabbos, here it says, two people did a malacha together. One is strong enough or has the ability to do this malacha by himself. The second one did not have that ability to do it by himself. What's the din? Yochel chayiv. The one who was able to do it is chayiv. The one who's not yochel, potter is potter. See, mamish, you see here, if the Messiah is merely, that classifies as Messiah, he's merely Messiah. Why is he? How do you know he's merely Messiah? Because he can't do it himself. And the other person is not Messiah. But he can do it himself. So the other one, and there, what do we see by Shabbos? He's potter. So to also, it's potter here. Even though he's helping. So he's Messiah, ain't boy mamash. Name says, Messiah ain't boy mamash. Okay, let's go to the next, let's finish off weiter a little bit. Don't
we say Melachas Machshavos on Shabbos? Therefore, the Messiah could be Osher.
And Shabbos is on Shabbos. Good, we'll look inside. Yeah, so it's a Shinchov Ches. You have negated to Shabbos. So we'll look at it now already if you're being the guys to Shaila here. So then we have also Shaila Mashla tooth. A lot in Shinchov Ches, all halachas about a tooth, about an eye, about a makro, everything. Halachas even about a lady who needs to have her nails done before mikveh and forgot to do it. She merely stand, not help, and the guy will cut the nails. You have a lot of shouts of Messiah not moving or not. Shabbos. So what here it says, there's a Taz, the Taz is machmir, that you can't have a guy take out your tooth on Shabbos. Even if you're in pain, you can't have a guy take. Because you need to open your mouth to be able to assist the guy. I'll tell you wasn't passing the Taz. The Ramah passing face you could. The Ramah said you could. Huh? The Ramah says you could. No, sure. That's the Ramah says you could. The Taz says the way he looks shouting about the Beitza here, couldn't taste that he looks shouting that you shouldn't. That you shouldn't. I'll tell you it's clear. It says here like this. You tell the Nochri to take out your tooth. He is making his tooth available for him, his mamtzi loy, opening up his mouth. He's helping him a little bit. Beitza also taking out the tooth. There's nothing there. Messiah has no mamash. The fish even if the Yid would not do it, the guy could do it himself. He could just open his mouth and do it. See you as there. Just if the Yid is going to be stubborn and keep his mouth closed, then of course the guy cannot open it. But if he was merely leave his mouth soft and allow it to be open and closed with someone else, it could be done. Now here it says, it's a parentheses there. Those that say malacha shenetzricha legufa ein asura ella midivrei soifrim. So he does go into what did you ask about?
No, that's Machshavos.
So no.
You did a little bit.
You're not being Messiah is not even mamash. Messiah doesn't mean it. It's garnish getan. Nothing to do with you. Messiah mamash means you didn't do anything. It's not your doing. Or it's not your thing. He's saying, okay, it's a shad Messiah mamish not to. The pasuk the din is Messiah ain't be mamish, not like the Taz. Very important thing. I mean, those that may and the a person has a big Tuesday. But Shinchov Ches is all about is in Yonim can I cook in halacha. It's not halacha shiv. Just took the Shulchan Aruch to show that you have this Hilchis Shabbos about the Psak Din ain't be mamish, and even the Taz agrees also with the Psak Din ain't be mamish. But by the tooth, he says. It's not called, it's more than Messiah. And Taz asked it, keep a cooking Taz, we'll see. And he argues that I'm weiter. Omar lit up Ashla Meimar. No, another. Meimar, Shara Lemikhal Eini B'Yom Tishen Shel Shoshana. Meimar allowed, and he was speaking about himself, a Yid himself, not the goy, going back to the yid. He allowed the yid to go be makchelene, to put his ointments into his own eyes on Yom Tov Shein Rosh Hashanah. So we're going now back to the yid. Yesterday, the other shir was about the yid doing it. We said also on Shabbos or Yom Tov. This year today was about a goy doing it for you was allowed. And now we're going back to you doing it for yourself, but when a Yom Tov Sheni, not just of Yom Tov, but Yom Sheni Shel Rosh Hashanah. So he allowed also Mikal Eina on Yom Tov Sheni Rosh Hashanah. No, by himself.
Talking about by himself.
Yeah. Omar Rabbi Ashila Meimar, Omar Rabbi didn't Rabbi say, Meis b'Yom Tov Rishon Yisasku ba'amamin. If a person died the first day of Yom Tov, the regular Yom Tov, so you could ask Goyim to be Isaac with the Kavura. Yom Tov Sheni, however, the only exception is about Kavod Hames for Kavura. Yom Tov Sheni, Yisasku Be Yisrael, even Yidden could be Isaac in burying another Yid on the second day of Yom Tov. And then he says, Vaitev afilu b'shnei yomim toivim Rosh Hashanah. Even Yom Sheni Rosh Hashanah, also a Yidden could be involved in the Kavura. And look at the next Amud Beis, Mashenke Beitza. That's only by a mess. Mashenke, when it comes to a Beitza that was laid the first day of Yom Tov. Normally, the first day of Yom Tov, you're allowed to eat it the second day of Yom Tov. We had it in the first Pedic. But the Shoshana, you're not allowed to eat it on the second day. You're telling me that you went ahead and did this malach of putting it into your eye. Mainly, you do it on a regular Yom Tov. I don't understand. But why on Shoshana? Shoshana, you can't. We had this also in the Haradoy in the first Pedic as well. He tells him, I hold that the people from the city of Naradoy. And what did they say? And they said, this Beitza, even Beitza, Yom Tov Sheni Shel Shoshana is just like Yom Tov Sheni Shel Dolos. We don't pass it that way, but that's what the Naradoy hold. And Ameimer holds it the Naradoy. So the same way, Ameimer says the same one is allowed to put this one in his eyes on the second day of every Yom Tov. You could also put it in the eyes on the second day of Shoshana. The Ami Av Beitza. What?
Who are the sages?
Kinaharadoy, the top line, the last word.
Who are the sages?
Oh, who's sages? There's a list of those from Naradoy. So.
Not tonight.
What? No, not tonight. It's Bavel. Doilim Bavel. Yeah. I don't have to mention the names of the Naradoy when you say something like Acherim is two Tanoim, like different terms when you say Naradoy, you have Zikr and Yerushalayim, you have different. I don't know if Naradoy mentions actually Tanoim, Amiroim, but this is Amiroim, definitely. It's a city involved. So I hold the people, and actually this we had in the argument in the first Pedic already. Why do you think that we should look at Rosh Hashanah differently than all the other Yom Tovim as we were Meidich already in the first Pedic? Why do you think? Because they might make Elul a Chodesh Ibur. They might make Elul, like we spoke to them by Arichis. We're not going to go into this now. The Eid might come on the first day of Elul, we could say the first day. The Eid might come or not going to come, and we're going to make Rosh Hashanah the next day, and then you're going to have this. Therefore, it's different. That's the Svara. That's the Svara. Why is Rosh Hashanah different? For that whole cheshbon, we're not going to go into this now. You think that's the reason why? But from the times of Ezra and on, it never actually happened. So that Gzeira, it's going to happen. That was an argument that Hadoy in the first Pedic. That's the reason why that Hadoy hold Rosh Hashanah just like the other Yom Tovim.
Rabbi Kiva was one of them?
Where? From where?
Rabbi Kiva.
The Shmuel Bar Meimah is the most prominent rabbi from Nahadar.
Shmuel Bar Meimah. It says from Nahadar. Okay. Now we have Ameiman also. Maybe Ameiman is from Nahadar also. He said, I hold. Maybe he also lived over there. Okay. I think Nachman was a
Mayanuka, Makashisha, Abba Alika.
All collection from the Chazal that says Mina Harador, people who live in Harador itself. Okay, let's look at Rashi on top of the Amud, the first Rashi. Rashi says, Mashen Kim Beitza, the Kedusha Achas Haim. Rosh Hashanah, a Beitza that was laid on the first day, should not be eaten the second day. Why? The Kedusha Achas Haim, it's one long Kedusha. B'lei Kilu, B'yom Tov Shein Rosh Hashanah, we were not makel in Yom Tov Shein Rosh Hashanah as we were makel in the other day, in the other Yom Tovim. Ella le'inyin meis b'lvad. Only as mentioned, when it comes to a mess, the second Rosh Hashanah has the same din as the second day of any Yom Tov. It's also in Shulchan Aruch with this din. Next piece of Gemara. Yeah, the Mishnah said, the last piece before, from the last Mishnah. We should remind ourselves, we have the Mishnah on the last Amud. It said three things that we see that Beis Hillel B'Shamai argued, but Rabbi Gamliel followed, even though he's from Hillel, he's a great grandchild from Hillel, he followed the Beis Shammai. One of the things where it says, the Ein Oifen, he didn't bake pitin gritzin, thicker or larger loaves of bread, elo kikin, only smaller ones. We'll have a discussion now with Gemara now. Large means thicker, large means bigger, just wider. We're going to have, we're going to start at the sugya. So the apparently Machlekes B'Sham is Hillel. B'Sham is going to hold that one should bake on Yom Tif only smaller pieces of bread, and Beis Hillel say no, one is allowed to bake even thicker or larger pieces of bread. Okay, the ones that are called gritzin is the thicker ones, and the kikin, is like a cracker, a thinner bread. We're going to bring in now a Beitza that's soon going to be relevant to our Gemara. Why? In the Havamina, we're going to understand this Beitza literal as what it means, and have a whole pshat about Pesach and about matzah and chometz, etc. Later, we're going to say that that can be the pshat in the Beitza, and the pshat is actually going to be something to get to our Mishnah about any Yom Tif, about a large or smaller breads. Then the sha'al will be, the Beitza mentions Pesach, so we'll say why he mentions Pesach. But normally you say Pesach, and you don't mention B'Yom Tif, you think right away, he's speaking about Hilchas Pesach specifically. But so therefore the beginning pshat is going to be, it's a din Hilchas Pesach, Machlekes. Later we're going to see, it's nothing to do with Pesach itself, it has to do bemis with any Yom Tif. That's going to be a reason why he mentioned Pesach. Let's start. The Rabbanon taught, B'Shamai Yoimrim, B'Shamai say, Ein oifin pas ova b'Pesach. One should not bake thick bread on Pesach. It's a chash of chometz. We'll see soon what does thick mean. Right? How thick could it be? You know? So weiter. Beis Hillel matirin. Beis Hillel said you're allowed to bake thick loaves of bread, meaning matzah, of course. You baked it within 18 minutes.
Of those days were different.
Oh, sure, right. So of course it can be chometz chas v'shom. It just means you can make it very thick dough. Make sure it's in the oven for less than 18 minutes. From when you put it until it comes to the oven, it's 18 minutes, and then you have matzah that's very, very thick.
They say that Teimonim had this matzah.
Yeah, you can have it even till today. Softer ones, how we have hard ones. No, let's see it. This machlekes is the source of it. B'Shamai say it can be thick, cracker, thin like we have it today, the matzah. Now we don't pass B'Shamai. I'm saying this. It says you. And Beis Hillel say it could be thick, but even Beis Hillel gives you a limit. It can be very thick, like we have our chalas. You can't go and make we'll tell you how much. A ham of a kama pass over. How thick does Beis Hillel allow the matzah to be? So he says, Omer Rav Huna tefach, 1 tefach.
3 inches.
3 inches, yeah.
Better.
Yeah, all right. Where does he get the number of a tefach from? Because we have an ayah now. We know in the Beis Hamikdash, kol sa'oir v'chol dvash lo yisaktim es Hashem. There was no chometz besides 2 korbanos. One is lechem haponim hashavuos and 10 breads of the korban toida. That's it. But the rest of the 30 breads of toida and all the other minches, including the lechem haponim that was brought every Shabbos, the 12 breads that were on the shulchan, they were all matzah breads. They weren't people. Sometimes Pesach. Sometimes it comes Shabbos Pesach, and people are thinking about Shabbos Chalmot Pesach. Do we say v'lakach soilas, referring to telling about the breads of the shulchan? Some people. I was a shul once. Someone asked that's a shaila. Not sure laughing. Saying the shaila. It says v'lakach take soilas v'afis soilas shteim esrei chalis. You should bake 12 chalis. So we're speaking about challah, and it's chalmei Pesach, Shabbos chalmei. Pshat is no, it's called challah, but obviously it's matzah, it's not chometz challah. But it says challah, as if we say this on Shabbos chalmei. But I think I looked it up later, maybe some people, because it says it, maybe not, but I'm also sure there's no shayla, you say it's not challah, it's matzah, it's not, everything was made from matzah. But lechem haponim, how thick was the lechem haponim? Lechem haponim was 1 tefach. What the Sukkah tells us, it says ponim. Ponim is a face. A person's face is the minimum of a person's face is a tefach. Yeah, people have big faces. One of this is maybe it means someone else's face. He says tafasta merubah tafasta. It means the smallest face. Maybe it's the small face of a bird. He says no, it's a face of a person. The smallest face of a person is one tefach. I'm not sure. I can't explain to you what it means. What do you want to say? Yeah, tefach. Okay, fine. I'll stay down in Marasukim. Okay. But you have to know how the thickness of the kapetis. So it doesn't say the kapetis. It says how wide the kapetis on top of the orn. It says how long it was and how wide. It doesn't say the thickness. No, the face of the kruvim darken or the kapetis.
Rashi says it with the
tefach. Yes, this Chumash doesn't say itself. And being the raya from the tefach of the shulchan. Anyways, there's a whole limud over there. Ponim and this. Ponim is one tefach. It's all arichas Gemara. Akoponim. So we know lechem aponim was a tefach, and there was matzah. We don't find anything else bigger than that. So says B'Hillel, you can't allow a bigger, thicker than that, because who knows, maybe a drop thicker than a tefach already is what's a problem? The problem is the inside doesn't bake so well. So maybe the inside taki became chametz. So we know from the Beis Hamikdash that if they allow the tefach, meaning up until the tefach, you're sure there's no chametz inside. Yeah? Let's look inside. So Dr. Razeh. So v'kamo pass over, how much the pass over? Dr. Gomer Huna, what's that? Tefach. One tefach. Shekein motzinu belechem aponim, because this is what we find lechem aponim. Tefach. It's a tefach. Now, Maskiv lo Rabbi Yosef. Rabbi Yosef asked a question to Rav Huna. How could we allow today our baking of matzah, a tefach? Because then in the Beis Hamikdash, the experts will see soon. The experts and how they did it, they were so careful. So how could we allow us, Pashta Yidden, to do it?
When we could know what they would do.
Yeah,
already they lost that tradition.
Yeah, not just that. It says how they did it, the process how it was done. They would bang the lechem 500 times. And it says how they'll do it with their palms and with their fists, and how they would do it, and the type of oven they had was from metal, and metal because the klisharis, so therefore it cooked much quicker. We have ovens from cheres, from earthenware, so it's not that hot. And the cloud, the oven was always on because always claiming eating their cooking, baking in that oven their foods. So it was constant. How can you compare to our oven that we just put it on and then we're going to put our bread inside, the matzah? A few reasons are going to say, how could we allow a yid today to make a matzah, a tefach, because then they were sure there was no chametz in that tefach. And then you're going to see the difference here.
That's interesting. That's interesting because we make our. We
try.
Not out of metal. We make out of stone.
Stone. It makes it even harder.
Yeah.
That's the type of balua.
700 degrees, these ovens.
Good. No, okay, let's see what it says here. Fine.
That doesn't pull it on in 1 second.
And even the wood used, the wood there, all the woods in the Beis Hamikdash, all the logs that were used, it had to be very dry.
Yeah.
Tu b'ov, from tesvav and of, they were not cutting trees for them, because from then on, there could be a little moist in the logs. And we bake our matzah, we're makbid, we don't know where it comes from. We order logs, and there's no. So different so many things, and therefore it's drier, there's more heat. So many aspects that they bake the lechem aponim, and therefore we could allow the chayre a tefach lechem aponim, and it won't become chametz. Why? Because they had all the heat. And how could you come and say that B'Hillel will allow us to do it also for a tefach, and it won't become chametz inside? We don't have all those factors that we have by the Beis Hamikdash. What was that? Dr. Gemara. Maskav Rabbi Yosef. Rabbi Yosef has a shaila. Im Amru b'Zrizim. First of all, Kayanim we know Kayanim are Zrizim, right? The Ramesh is a Kayan. Kayanim are Zrizim. So Zaris b'Chlal, they're more careful, they're quick, and not every Yid who makes matzah is Zaris. Yemru b'Sheina Zrizim. We should apply the din also to non-Kayanim like us. They're not so Zaris. Im Amru b'Pas Amela. We're going to speak about pas amela, working hard. The Rashi describes, like we said, how much you need it. 500 times you bang it. They're so careful. Yemer pas she'ena amela. Our pas we do. We're not working so hard to knead the bread. So maybe there's going to be still some packets there of chametz, of flour that didn't really get well knead with the water. Speak if you're going to say this din is by when you use totally dry wood, as you mentioned, cut before to be tuba'av. You're going to say also we use all kinds of wood, even more wood that has moist in it. Like Rashi says, it's a metal tanur which is hot. Our tanur is a little bit cooler than the other one. No, that's cham. No, sorry, that's cham is because it's always on. The fire was constantly on. It's a very boiling oven. But else we put it on to make our matzah. So how could you say apply it to us also? Next factor. Imam, if you said the din betana shel matchis, the Tana from metal, we'll say Rashi why it has to be from metal, why wasn't it from earthenware? But we'll see Rashi Yem Tana shel cheres, our Tana. So how could you compare the mikdash baking bread and matzah to us? So therefore, we'll say different pshat in this brayse. So again, we're going to go away from the pshat we just learned. But the shah is going to be: are these halachas applicable today in Hadin about the thickness of the bread of the matzah? We're saying now pshat Hillel says it can be thicker tefach, and now we slugged it up that it can't be a tefach, or we have no raya, and we're going to say a new pshat. But what happened with this whole pshat about having the thickness of a tefach? So we're going to open up Shulchan Aruch, and we'll find you here what it says in Shulchan Aruch today about the thickness of a tefach. And actually, the Rishonim say some say it's hakanat, some say you can't have a thickness of a tefach. We just slugged up the pshat in the brayse. But many of the Rishonim say no, that's can be talking the halacha like Brazil, and you could have up to a tefach to have, and it won't be chametz. But that we'll see in a moment. Let's go weiter. Let's first now learn the new pshat in the brayse, and actually that's the reason why the Gemara brought to the brayse now. What to do in the Beitza? Because we had in our Mishnah machlokes of Bisham Hillel about making thick breads or thin breads on Yom Tif, and now we brought in this brayse. We slugged up the pshat that we think it's about chametz and matzah, and now we're going to say the pshat is going to be about our sugi itself, about the thickness of the dough or not. So rather, he says, Amar Rabbi Yirmi about Abba, she'elis es Rabbi beyichud. I asked Rabbi, my Rebbe, beyichud. What does yichud means? Two pshatim Rashi. Pashas means in private. So he says, I asked my Rebbe in private. But which Rebbe am I talking about? Umanu Rav. Which rabbi, which teacher of mine did I ask in private that I'll be telling you now this new pshat? It's Rav. My Passover. No, this first second line. Rav. Rav. Yeah. My Passover. What is the pshat that it says in the Braisa Passover? Pas meruba. A lot of dough. Doesn't mean thick, it means a lot. Ikidamri, some people say, Omar Rav Yimriya bat Abba, Omar Rav. Rabbi said the name of Rav, that Rav was the one who asked his teacher. She'elis es Rabbi beyichud. Rav said, I asked my teacher in private. And which teacher was Rav referring to? Umani Rabbeinu HaKadosh, the same answer. Who was Rabbeinu HaKadosh? My Passover, Pas Meruba. We'll see in a moment what means Pas Meruba, Machlekes, Rashi, and Taisis. But let's first, Pas Meruba, a lot of bread. V'mai korli pas. So there's two pshatim in yichud. One yichud pshat is poshet yichud in private, and one is bebirur, it's clear. Actually, the Ayem Yem, I looked into it before, the Ayem Yem, it's an Elul time that says the taich of Yechidis. What's Yechidis? So one taich of Yechidis is pshat, klor. It brings a raya like Rashi brings over here, the second pirush, from where? Shkolim. And Takan Ayem Yem says from Shkolim. There it says if there was a tile in the Beis Hamikdash, that they knew that the organ was hidden under there in the second Beis Hamikdash, and no one should go and take off the tile. And one kohen went and he took off the tile and he died because he was the makbid. And it said that they knew beyichud that there was Shama. That's the yichud, the type of yichud yichidus to our Rebbe is also seret zachav and klor. Then there is opketelt. That's the Gemara Yuvamis, who speaks about Meish Rabbeinu. The three things was Meisef Midaite, and then it says the yichud means opketelt, separated, and the Pashat yichud means united together. So get an yichidus, the drei yonim. The klor, opketelt. I think we have to look into the El. So the type of yichud would be the second Rashi. Yichud means either means he told me in private, or it means he told it to me. It was very clear to me. He made it very clear to me. This is going to be the pshat in the brayse. And what does it mean of a Passover? Which one is what? The
first and the second. The first Rashi says, but the first one they went by night. And the second one it says the bitter.
Okay. Well, let's forget the pshat in the brayse, and then we can look at the pshat in the brayse will be that it's speaking about thick Passover. Now, how does this help? We're speaking about Pesach. We're not speaking of Pesach. I mean, just up until now, we also said over. Over means a lot. What does it mean a lot? The thick? No, it means not a thick. It means a lot. So what's the pshat?
My Passover.
So my Passover. What's Passover? So it says my Passover pas meruba, a lot of bread. You shouldn't make a lot of bread. Bishamai says what? Bishamai ain't oifen Passover. Don't make a lot of bread. Don't bake a lot of bread on Pesach, it says. Bishamai say you could bake a lot of bread on Pesach. My quarterly Passover, why do you call a lot of bread over thick bread? Call it a lot of bread. Mishum de nefisha belisha. You have to do a lot of lisha, a lot of kneading. Therefore, you have to do a lot. Therefore, it's called over.
What's wrong with that?
Wait, what's going to be the Chal Pshat? Oh, so what's the Chal, the whole thing? So we're going to have now, we'll learn in a moment Rashi. Let's just finish up the sugi here. And why not? And why shouldn't you eat inami? Or you could say, no, but Asr, the Haitanya, pass Maruba, pass avocadoli. Or you could say, Pashit, in that place, when they wanted to refer to a lot of bread, they said thick bread. Okay, we're speaking about a lot of bread. Okay, let's stop a moment here and tell what Rashi said Pshat. The whole different Pshat, nothing with Pesach. It's to do with Yom Tif. And Rashi says like this. It's a machlekes like we had before, Rav Shimon Elazar and the Chachamim, before we had it. Then what do we have? Is a person allowed to bake extra bread? When you had the small ovens, where you'd fill the entire oven, it was beneficial for every piece of bread to have more breads in the oven. So if I needed 5 breads for Yom Tif, but I had a small oven and it could hold 10 breads, and if I were to fill my oven with 10 breads, those 5 Yom Tif breads will have a better taste to it. So I'm allowed to put, Rabbi Shimon is allowed to put 10 bread loaves into my oven, even though 5 will be for after Yom Tif. Why? Because I'm benefiting my first only by small ovens at those times. That just describes how it is. Today's ovens, you can't do that because it's not going to add. Today you have to put mamish tzorke, how much you need. You can't bake more than you need. But then Rabbi Shimon says you could, the Chacham says you can't, but Shimon says you could. So says Rashi, what does it mean over here? Pashut, baking more bread. Passover, it says a lotion of over, but it means really meruba, a lot of bread. The Shammai say you could not bake that 5 extra pieces of bread into your oven in order to enhance the taste of those 5 you're going to be using on Yom Tif. And Bishilo say you're allowed to put the extra 5 loaves in your oven to enhance the taste of the 5 loaves you use. So that's going to be according to Rashi. It means basically Rabbi Shimon Elazar and Chacham that we had before. The Beishan of this hill is the same exact machlekes. Taste is going to come with a shaila pashit. In that case, the Gemara should have said that it's totally in that machlekes. If the machlekes of Shammai's hill here is exactly the same machlekes of Shimon Elazar over there in the Chachamim, if you're allowed to add more bread that you don't need, right, for the svarav, it's going to enhance the bread. The style of the Gemara should have been that this machlekes of Shammai's hill, it's exactly the same machlekes of Shimon Elazar. And because the Gemara doesn't say that, says Taisus, he said it's not the pshat in our Gemara. It's a different pshat. So I'll tell you the pshat of Taisus. Taisus is a different pshat in this Gemara. We'll do it inside soon. Taisus says the pshat is, it's a very important difference here. You're putting in the same amount of bread into the oven. Again, according to Rashi, Rabbi Hillel will allow you to add more bread that you don't need for Yom Tif, for the reason mentioned. The Shammai not. Taisus says no. The pshat is going to be, you're only allowing this person now to put in the amount. Let's say it's not a small oven, it's a big oven, so there's no heter at all to put more breads in. The shaila is the style of the bread. The texture of the bread. So ava means large pieces of dough, large pieces of bread, and the non-ava means smaller ones. Listen to this word of taste, it's very interesting. Because taste like this. Taste says that what? The Shammai is saying you only could bake smaller breads, not larger ones. Why not larger? You only need it for Yom Tov. So if you need to have, let's say, for example, 5 breads, you can make either one large piece of bread, which has 5, or you can make that 5 different. The Shammai says better make 5 smaller breads. Better bake. You have a big piece of dough. Better split it into, you need the whole entire dough you need to eat for you and your family. Better take the dough and split it into 5 smaller challahs and bake that on Yom Tif. Even though it's a bigger tirche, it's much bigger tirche to bake 5 individual pieces of dough than throw 1 big piece of dough into the oven. The Shammai said, do that. He'll will say, no, you can do whatever you want. You can make a big piece of dough, 1 big challah, a small challah. What's the svara b'Shammai? Svara is like this. It's much easier to bake large pieces of dough. If you're going to allow the person to do a big piece of dough, so he's already oisik now an easy activity, he might, by mistake, throw in another big piece of dough for choil. It's easy to do it. So he might bake for something shaloi l'tzeirich after Yom Tif. So we're telling him now, have a bigger tircha, be more matriach yourself now it's very interesting because all the Masechta we have Tirchi Yisera, Yom Tov B'Shamai says no Tirchi Yisera, don't do it. Here we're having an opposite. That B'Shamai is telling you be matriach a little bit of a more Tirchi Yisera to make five separate, so that the Gzeira, because you can allow to do you might if we're going to allow to do a big piece of dough, you'll take the second one and do it also for tomorrow. You shouldn't tell later. But Hillel says no, do whatever you want, either this or this. And according to Taisus and Rashi, it's a whole different pshat in our Gemara, but Tirchi Yisera means in our Gemara. Let's first finish till the Mishnah, then we'll do the Rashi and Taisus. And also how you teach Tirchi Yisera in the Gemara. Inami, okay. Inami or Ba'asri, the Haitana, pas Merube, pas over Kodli called it now. Very Mechti, have Mechti. Let us see. Mishum the Torach Tircha the Leit Sarich. The whole point here is what? We're speaking about Yom Tif, nothing to do with Pesach and Chametz and Matzah. We're speaking now the way to explain it according to Rashi, and according to Taisus, it's all connected to Yom Tif, with an extra Tircha. So my area Pesach, I feel B'Shayim Tevunami. Why is it the Beitza tell us Pesach? It should just say a Yom Tif, nothing to do with Pesach. Says the Gemara, and the Chanami. You're right. The Beitza really means Machlekes Shamzil on a regular Yom Tif. Could you bake this way or that way? The Tana be Yom Tif the Pesach Koi. The Tana happened to be speaking about halachas of Pesach, so he threw in and put in also this halacha. But the halacha is not referring specifically to Pesach. Okay, you learn the Beitza, the Pshach looks like it's Pesach. I mean, he says Pesach, you think, we learned before, it's a whole different pirush. We spoke before about the thickness of the matzah that you're making for Pesach. It's about Yom Tif, and how you should make a better Yom Tif. And we also learn the Beitza this way. The Shammai say, an Eifrim pass, Meruba b'Yom Tif, the Sil Matirin, the Sil say it's mutter. So that's going to be the way to explain the Machlekes. Now we'll do Rashi, then Taisus.
Originally, Rabbi Gamliel said he was talking about Pesach, or just
no. It's the Beitza says Pesach. Tanabon B'Shamai ain't even Passover b'Pesach. B'Shamai said don't bake fig bread on Pesach, right. And Basil said do bake, so we think it's speaking Dafka Pesach. No, now it's speaking Yom Tov.
The original mission. That's what
that was Rabbi Gamliel was speaking about every Yom Tov. Not to pay every Yom Tov. He said the Yom Tov. His father's home. They would follow B'Shamai and they would not bake.
He did not mention. He did not mention the idea
of Pesach. No. But this Beitza Tanabon. Another Nekuda, just while Taisus say that advantage over Rashi's pshat. Another Kashi has a Rashi. With Pashut, he said, according to Rashi, it has really nothing to do with our sugi that we just mentioned now. According to Rashi, what does Rashi say about making a lot of breads? Yeah, even though you don't need it. That's a sugi we had before Shimon Lazar. So here's a two Kashi. First of all, the Gemara style would have been to mention that Beishamai and Hil Machlokes depends on a Machlokes of Shimon Lazar about adding more bread that you don't need on Yom Tov. Number one, a Kashi from Taisus. And number two, it's not connected to our sugya. Why did David and Rashi put that in continuation to the Mishnah here? This Mishnah here is not speaking about being moisif, adding more bread when not necessary. He's speaking about large or smaller piece of bread. All it's tzedek. The Mishnah was speaking about you're only baking what you need. Only kasha is, could I bake thicker ones or bake thinner ones? Tircha, not tircha. And here, according to Rashi's pirush, has nothing to do with the size of the bread. It has to do with adding more pieces into your oven, which is not the sugya at hand here. So because these two questions takes as his pshat, that is speaking about the size of the bread, and it's only what you need. Taisa is going to say the pshat is a yid baking.
That just confused me. I didn't understand.
Yeah. So Taisa is going to say how this interpretation of the Beitza. Yeah. That's why Ravina Ravashi. That's what the Gemara brought this in our sugi here, is directly related to the din of our Mishnah. Our Mishnah speaks about a person baking only the amount that he needs. Our Mishnah is not discussing at all one doing baking or cooking for something after Yom Tif. That was discussed many blocks back. Rabbi Shimon Elazar, you have a Beitza there. A baker could put more water, and a Meisef Yishurim, you could add more bread. That's another sugya, adding more that you don't need to enhance the taste of your Yom Tif food. That was mentioned a few blocks before. Our sugya is not speaking about that. It's speaking about a person baking whatever he needs, not doing anything more. Only shaila was the size of the dough he's making. That you need to have 5 pounds of dough. Could you make it thick pieces of bread, or should one make it very thin pieces of bread from that 5 pounds? And Rabbi Gamliel said that my father's home, even though we're from Hillel, we followed Shammai, and we made sure that on Yom Tov we only bake thinner pieces of bread, not thicker pieces of bread. That was the Chiddush of our Mishnah. And on that comes our Gemara with this Beitza about Pesach, and now we know the Beitza is not just about Pesach, it's about Yom Tov. And then the Beitza apparently has to do with our Mishnah. So according to Tosfos Pshat, it fits perfectly with the continuation of our Mishnah, because we're speaking here about baking the exact amount that you need, and the only shaila is the size of dough, big or small. Now we actually know why the Shammai say in the Mishnah, Gamliel says to make thin. Why should you make thin? Now we know why. But according to Rashi, Rashi tells us the Shammai and Hillel are arguing about adding more breads.
That's where I get confused. The reason I'm getting confused because that's just a shot, the exact same idea. In other words, we're developing one idea that it's too many, but it's talking about thick loaves, thin loaves. But we'll be coming to what it means, thin loaves, thick loaves, comes out from Rashi's shot, that idea. But listen, this is my question. We're talking about Rabbi Gamliel right now, what he said. This is one of the things he said. So we're defining that idea. Why does it have to follow in the same idea of what was said here, and not just referring back to
before? Because Rabbi Gamliel is not speaking about baking more.
He doesn't. We don't know what he's talking about.
He said he would make. He mentioned the breads with pitin geritzin or the kikin.
Yeah,
would you make thicker? He says, well, my father's house would make sure we made them thinner.
Yeah, okay.
That's just if you would say something, he's not speaking about adding for Yom Tov, for baking for after Yom. You want to suggest that even Rabbi Gamliel, the Mishnah is referring to making more dough because the ovens to enhance the taste?
Came into Ava would have simple shutting with more bread. You see that? Right.
Marbed means more, right.
Yeah.
So the word, you're right. So the thing, so we can have certain elements of the Gemara that l'choire fits more with Rashi's pshat. Marbe means adding, right?
Yeah.
Marbe means adding.
Yeah.
And according to Tosfos, no, it's going to be over here not adding, just the size of it. So that's going to give Rashi a check. That looks for Rashi. But then from the fact that it doesn't belong here in our sugya, that l'choire is more for Tosfos pshat. So there's going to be reasons why I thought this also that the reason why Rashi says it's pshat because the pashtus is marve. What's he say? The ava ma'ava. Maruba, pas maruba. Maruba l'poil means more in quantity, more.
Sure.
Okay, so he said that's right. So the lashon, the word marve seems to be like Rashi that you're adding more, as we mentioned before. But because it takes us 2 questions, he says we'll have to take the word marve and not learn it literally. I learned the way Tosfos learned, not in quantity, you're having more than 5 pounds for your family needs. I'm going to be baking 5 pounds of flour, point blank, according to Tosfos. I'm not marba now. Marba just means I'm adding in the amount of pieces I'm making. Because I'm making more pieces out of this 5 pounds instead of making one big piece.
In other words,
so marba could also be pshat. Marba, I'm making more pieces. Doesn't mean I'm making more dough. According to Rashi, I'm making more dough because I'm making more to enhance the piece that I have. According to Tosfos, this one.
If it comes out, the discussion
is
instead of Rav said, what Rabbi said, both said more breads.
They said more. The question is it
What
does it mean
more
exactly?
Got it.
And each one has a reason why they say let's do Rashi inside. That's what Rashi. I think we did everything about Pesach, so it should be clear to go through quickly Rashi inside. So we'll finish up in a few minutes, hopefully. Let's see. Okay. Let's see. Pesach. Okay. Second line from the top, Rashi Pesach. Yeah. The Kosolka Daitach was this whole Bryce is speaking about Pesach because it mentions Pesach. It says the Pesach, so why should I understand it differently? Kosolka Daitach and now the Gemara thinks she'eina yachayil l'shamra mehichmitz. You can't guard it from becoming chametz if it's thick. The kama pas ava, what is called ava, thick. This hillel allows more than what? How thick? Shehitiru bes hillel. How much do we do matir? It says a tefach. Why? Tefach shekein matzinu belechem aponim. So we found lechem aponim. Shehu matzah. We know for sure it's matzah lechem aponim. It says the first the menach is called the lashon hamishna. Kol hamenach is bois matzah. Besides, like we mentioned before, which ones don't? Now, for of tefach, the thickness of lechem aponim was tefach. How do we know this? Kishmai as the name lechem haponim. It looked like a face, and the Torah called it ponim. And yesh loy ponim, it had a face to it. And the Gemara Sukkah says ve'ein ponim pchusim mitefach. The side says Gemara Sukkah daf hey. So there we know that a face is going to be not less than a tefach. So lechem ponim was one tefach.
Before the face of a child.
Child, it says there.
Before I'm saying.
Okay. Now, the Gemara question was, how could you compare our baking to the Mikdash baking? First of all, Zerizim. Shalbeis Gormei, the family of Gormei, they were the ones who knew how to make the art of the Lechem Aponim. And they were Shayu Umnim, they were experts in this field. Zerizim, the Dover, they were very, very quick in this. So you can't compare them to us. Next thing is called Pasamela. They worked very hard when they made the dough. It gives a French word, Braya. Shahoya, he describes it, it says in Masechta Menachis. Shahoya ton gimel meyois. It needed 300 shifa. Shifa means shif biyadei, rubbing it with your hands.
Yeah.
Rubbing with your hands. V'chomesh meyois beita. Sorry, you had 800 in total, right? 300 with your palm of your hand, and 500 banging with your fist. And actually describes the difference. Beita be'egroif. Beita means with your fist. You bang with your fist. And shaf and shifa. And then how they do it? Shaf achas. First they will do one banging with the hand. Then boyet bang twice. Shaf shtayim, do shifa twice. Boyet sholish. The total would be, you would come out to be 300 of this and 4 or 5. Okay, well, doing this to the dough in that professional way, you won't have chametz.
Chef achas, boyet. One chef.
Oh, yeah. Well, Kapanim, so this is shifa is what? Rubbing with your palm. What? No. After. Sure. You have dough. When you have dough.
So they would smooth it and bang it.
No,
Smooth it and
the seeds themselves. I'm sure.
No. This is the dough. The dough. Yeah. So the moment water comes, the more water comes to the. It's in the Masech Menachos. It's a Mishnah Menachos. Okay. So look at the Menachos.
The kernels.
What did it have to do with the kernel?
No, that was when you made the flour. It's another. Okay, you can look at. I'm almost sure it's a shot. Okay, cool. But that's the one thing. After the water hits the flour and you have that 80 minutes, the water hits the flour 80 minutes. Then they would be so careful to make sure that it should not near chametz. This is what they would do, and the people were experts.
Why did they have to do? They didn't have to do that for that. This is only to get.
It shouldn't become chametz.
To all due respect, this is only to get the kernels clean and perfectly ground.
Well, see what you're saying. It's not the dough. So take a Gemara Menachos, and we'll see now if you want to still go with that. I'm saying I'm almost sure the pshat is what you have there. You have the English. What does it say there?
Everything.
It says about the kernels.
Not here. It doesn't say.
So let me see it.
I have to go to.
I can take Menachos. I'm almost. I think I learned. We'll go right. Yeah, so that's the pshat. There was more careful in this eifin.
I just brought it up.
Yeah, very. I'm sure they were also careful when they ground it as well. Maybe you're referring to that as well. There was another. So I'm sure. Another thing with eitzim yiveshim, dry mites vav ba'av hayapoiskim melichros eitzim.
The heating. And Rabbi Yossi says the botzik.
The botzik. Oh.
The both. One is the heating. Okay, Shifra Vita the heating. Rabbi Yossi Omer the botzik.
The botzik. Okay. But the chitim that will do that 500, the 800 also. So, okay.
I think that's wrong.
Yes.
I think it's finally
ground. We'll look into that. Look. Okay, but let's go right there. So very right. Eitzim yeveshim tezvav avay poiskim melichres eitzim from tezvav and over on when it started to become a little bit less the days, so there wasn't so hot outside. Then they stopped cutting eitzim to baracha. Mesechtes Tainis. Eitzim lishka so eitzim ayoifim ma'atzos kesim ayoifim mavashim kol tzarkei mikdash. From the wood that was stored in the lishka of eitzim, that's the wood they used for all the needs for the baking in the Beis Hamikdash. The tanur cham, where was it? I had a tanur. Shemasikin ois b'chol yoim. Every single day they would light the tanur. Hein lemenachos, ve'hein letzli. They would do everything in there. They would make it for baking the breads and also to roast. The kohenim would eat the meat of the chatas and the shlam, and they would roast in those ovens. So it was used constantly. Also made from matches. Now who said it was made from matches? Didn't they have other ovens? The kohenim when they're eating their meat, they're not that from the kohenim that are eating the shiari leftovers from the mincha and they're making it into bread. Or they're eating the meat that they got from the korbanos chatas and shlamim. They don't have to cook it, bake it in a tanur in an oven of metal. They can bake it in any oven they want. metal is only for klisharis. Klisharis, anything that's a klisharis, it's mekadesh. The food that comes inside of it can't be from earthenware. It's not the choshev enough for the Beis Hamikdash. But those two breads, the lechem aponim, it became holy when they baked it.
Made out of stone.
No, the oven have to be klisharis. The klisharis, any bucket. When does the oichel become kodesh? When does the animal become kodesh? Mashal, when he shechts it, the klisharis, the knife that gives the shechts the animal, that's mekadesh the dam, so to speak. The animal becomes hektish when the clear is hektish. But the klisharis, when I'm putting the flour inside a bucket, so the bucket is a klisharis. The moment it goes inside, it becomes the klisharis. When I'm taking the kaimitz and putting it into another klisharis for the kaimitz to go on top of the mizbeach, it's also a klisharis. So the key is a klisharis. Therefore, the water can't be overnight. So anything is important to know in Hilchis, right? In Hilchis Kochim, what is called the klisharis? That's possible lino. Can't be, and many halachas about klisharis. So the din is that when does the mincha or korban become holy? When it comes in contact with the klisharis.
Yeah.
So the ovens that the kohanim would eat, the leftover of the korbanos, doesn't have to be a klisharis. They could bake it wherever they want and just eat it in certain korbanos in certain places. But the bread and lechem aponim and the shtei alechem, they became kedesh when they were baked. Therefore, it must be from a metal matzah.
Because I know that one of the things Kishonis is Mishraim, you didn't make the clay Harris tome because they had to have so many from Beis Hamikdash, because you couldn't capture a Harris clay. Right. So they made many names. Right.
So they had other ovens, of course, but for the bread they had but for the lechem aponim, it must be in a metal oven. Right. So it says it says Amrinon Tanur shall mikdash shall matchus hoya. Why? Mishum only because it's lechem v'lechem aponim. Why was it necessary only for those two to have it from metal? Shafi yason ukdushason betanur havele betanur. The kedusha, the baking, and the food became from the tanur. So betanur havele klisharis. It's classed as a klisharis. Uklisharis the cheres leabdina. You don't make a klisharis from cheres. Beyichud, what's the lashon? Yichud zakter beini lebeinoi. So the first pshat is between me and him. I heard it private. Vikadamri Rav Gufei Omar. Rav himself said, She'eli says Rav Beyichud, Rabbi Beyichud. I asked Rabbi, my teacher, Beyichud means between me and him. And Umanu, who is this teacher that I asked? Rabbi, the Rav, Rabbeinu HaKodesh. The Rabbi of Rav, Rabbeinu HaKodesh. Now, Loshen Acher, another taich in the word Beyichud Bebirur, clear. As I mentioned before, the Hayei name that Yichud means one of the touches is Klor. When there was one tile episode, a Kayan, I think, was taken off the tile, and then I think he died. So that they knew clear, they were sure that here, the Aron under there, the Aron was hidden. Pas Meruba, says Rashi, V'lav Mishum Chametz. Nothing to do with Chametz and Pesach. El Mishum, the Torah Tircha Yisera, because he baked more bread, like you said, the Pashat Muba means more. You needed 5 pounds for your family. You baked 10 pounds, you needed more, and you did it for the next day.
Yeah.
Why would Hill say it's mutter then? It's a problem. You can't bake for Yom Tif for after Yom Tif. As you mentioned, Shimon also says that the bread is baked better when you have more dough in there. We also learned the Shayom Tevim Naminech could also argue other Yom Tevim. Let's do one taste on top. Let's try to do the two questions we have taste on Rashi. We had already about that. The Nefishi Belisha Pirush Rashi. Rashi says, "Ubeis Hillel Matirin." You have it. Why the Hillel says Mutter Mishum? The Amar of Shimon. Rashi doesn't mention the name of the Tana, but he refers to the din that Rab Shimon says, "Ben Elazar Mamala Adam Isha Tanur Pas." A lady is allowed to fill up the entire oven, the smaller ovens in the ground with the pas, in order that those pitim that you're using on Yom Tov should be baked better. It doesn't like the pshat of Rashi. Doesn't seem to me that's the pshat of Gemara. Why choda? One reason why I don't like this pshat. The imkain, if the machlekes b'shan b'shilal here depends on the machlekes of Shimon Lazar and Achaman before, havalei lasuye ha that Shimon Lazar. You should have brought in. If Shimon Lazar mentioned his name here, Kivon de Puktayu Bahachi, being they're arguing the same point. So the mother side would be that Shamis Hillel Bahani Tanoi Pligi. They're the same identical argument, but the mother didn't say that. Doesn't seem like It's the same machlekes. That's number one. Number two, he says, "V'oid leidami klal lepitin gritzin." It's not, according to Rashi, you added more quantity, you allow it to add more. It's not similar to our Mishnah of pitin gritzin, thicker or thinner loaves. Why did you bring it over here? Ulamai isni ohacha. Why did the Amayra, why did the Gemara bring it over here? Literally, therefore, takes a different shot. The pas meruba doesn't mean literally more quantity. Instead of baking 5 pounds of flour, they bake 10 pounds. Doesn't mean that. To come at hainu pitim gdoilim, they took the same 5 pounds and they made large loaves out of it, or smaller loaves. Punkt like an our Mishnah, gritzin or kikin. Pitim gdoilim, large would be yoser. The pshat is, it's also, the science is, you also do it for in the weekday people bake this way. Hoyil, the aim by toirach, larger loaves of bread are not so difficult. There's no tircha to make them. You put together a large piece. Smaller loaves are hard to shape them and make them. Okay, the aim by toirach, kol kach, it's not so difficult to do it. The hachim mashma be the Shalmi. In the Shalmi actually mashma this way. There it says, and it gives a reason. Toich sha'ato miyageyai, because you're making him work harder, telling him to like Bishami says, make him make smaller. Therefore, he's going to hold himself back. He's only going to he's making him work harder. In order, if you have to do only smaller pieces, you're not going to go and make more. I want to be matriach myself. That's what he holds. The past cut and the fact is, a smaller piece of bread is harder to shape make. Yes, about this, everything going separately. And whether the gritzim and kikim, like Rashi says, one is more, you're making it more. He says, no, it's only tzorke. You need to have 5 pounds, doing 5 pounds. But the question is, how did you do it in smaller or bigger pieces? The gam hein shavin ba'avion. It's also thick the same way. Ella, the gritzim hainu gdoiloi, so the kikitanis. Actually, he says something else. It's actually thick the same way. And plus here it's flatter, bigger, and here it's thinner. That's just the way it's made. So, those are the it says later, the Gemara says itself. The reason why is because you are matriach now. So they also taste off a little bit different. They're not you are matriach now. Actually, you are matriach now. But we're not allowing you. It says leitzarich. The Gemara says leitzarich. It's like Rashi. The Gemara says, don't do this because you're doing matriach leitzarich. Seems like you're baking extra bread. It says taste hachikama. But not you are actually baking instead of 5 pounds, you need 5. You might come to do a tircha, but not Lepel is doing it. That's the thing. Just to say a thing here that we said about the din about a thick piece of bread and making matzah. Ein oisin halacha yud in tov samach nater b'shulchan aruch. Ein oisin matzah of a tefach. One should not make matzah. Should not bake matzah that's thick of tefach. Why? So he says, if it's very thick matzah, not just because of, we speak soon about yotzei mitzvah of matzah, but even about making maybe it's chametz. Don't break bread that's thicker tefach, even though it's matzah, because if it's so thick, yesh lachus, you could be concerned, shema lo yishleit choim ha'esh b'teicha, the heat of the fire won't be shaylet, won't go and control the inside, but the inside as well. And the inside will become chametz even while you're baking because it's not so hot. Less than a tefach, even a drop less than a tefach, you're allowed to go and do it. So the kasha, the Gemara here, the halacha is we don't accept it kasha. Okay, we're going to compare it. You're allowed to do a tefach. According to Gemara's kasha, that how could we allow a yid to do up to a tefach? Because in the Beis Hamikdash they baked in a tefach. They were experts and all that. We don't accept apidin. We say no. We still could if let a drop right on the tefach. You should do it. Mutalas is lachatchila. Mikradin lachatchila less than a tefach mashu. You're allowed to bake your matzah thick. A tefach and a drop less, there's no problem doing it.
Even the Hazanisha's.
What?
Even the Hazanisha's tefach?
Oh, okay. What the dinner tefach? Now, what's about a tefach itself? Even tefach itself is not there if it's not chametz. Because the science is the heat of the tanur is shoyle does penetrate the thickness if it's a drop less than a tefach. That's the fact. Kshem tefach. We come nevertheless. Toiv lasses hamatzes kikin dakin. Better to make the matzahs thinner crackers. She'ein memarim lahachmitz kolkach kemei ha'avis, because they won't become chametz as the thick ones. Shadayim hein chutz tamat after the tan. Before even after the tan, it's v'im over not v'im over v'osa matzahs over tefach. If you actually made matzahs shika tefach, what do we say then? Says the Alter Rebbe. Oh, yeah, you see even more. Muteres ba'achilo. You're allowed to eat it. Don't do it. At you should do it crackers. If you then you can even do it less than tefach, and you can go ahead and eat it. Make it also. But if you happen to already bake it more than a tefach, it's nicht gefährlich. You're allowed to eat it. Open up and look inside the matzah. If it was baked good, and then go ahead and eat it. The lay nichmet so did not become chametz. Show me that spot. Now it became toiv shelo likach oisel lemitzvus matzah. So that matzah, more than a tefach, which Alter Rebbe says you could eat it if you checked it. You could eat it even for the matzah. Better don't be yoy to the mitzvus matzah. But eating it not to mitzvus matzah, you could. Less than a tefach kumteis, even for your mitzvus matzah, you could eat it. So kumteis from Alter Rebbe Shulchan Aruch, that less than a tefach, a drop, even the mitzvus matzah, you could eat it. So Rabbi Sabag was saying before that some of the svardim they have up is very thicker matzahs.
I'm saying, but they take more of it. They have money.
Yeah. Also, they have it soft. Okay. Next time we'll do. Wednesday I will do this time for the next Mishnah.
That was, I checked that Mishnah.
The Menachos?
Yeah, they found the person picked up the thing.
In Nana Menachos, in Shkolim. Yes. What does it say there that?
Picked it up and he was sure it was it.
That he died? That a person died? There was punished there.
Punished. Wasn't punished.
What?
He was